December 20th, 1968. A Friday night in Benicia, California. Two teenagers, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, drove to a popular lover's lane on Lake Herman Road, seeking privacy on a cold winter evening. They had no way of knowing they were being watched. Around 11 p.m., a vehicle pulled up behind them. Moments later, gunshots shattered the silence. A passing driver discovered their bodies shortly before midnight. David was shot in the head, dying instantly. Betty Lou had been shot 5 times in the back as she tried to flee. The Zodiac Killer had claimed his first confirmed victims. 6 months passed. On July 4, 1969, another young couple met a similar fate. Darlene Farron and Michael Mago sat in a parked car at Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo, just 4 miles from the first attack. Shortly after midnight, a car approached. A man emerged with a flashlight and a gun, firing multiple shots into the vehicle. Darlene died from her wounds. Michael survived, though severely injured. Less than an hour after the shooting, a man called the Vallejo Police Department, calmly claiming responsibility for both attacks. The voice was measured, deliberate, chilling in its composure. On August 1, 1969, 3 nearly identical letters arrived at Bay Area newspapers: the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. Each contained specific details about the murders that only the killer could know. Each letter included 1/3 of a cryptographic cipher consisting of strange symbols. The author demanded the newspapers print the ciphers on the front pages, threatening to go on a killing spree if they refused. He signed off with a circle and cross symbol. The Zodiac Killer had introduced himself to the public, and he craved attention. The cipher captured the public's imagination. Amateur cryptographers across the country attempted to decode the 408 symbols. On August 8th, a schoolteacher named Donald Harden and his wife Betta cracked it. The message was disturbing. The killer boasted about hunting humans as his most dangerous game, claiming he was collecting slaves for the afterlife. The decoded message revealed a mind both methodical and deeply disturbed. It confirmed authorities were dealing with someone who planned carefully, who wanted recognition, and who believed he was playing an elaborate game with law enforcement and the press. September 27, 1969. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, college students, enjoyed a quiet afternoon picnic at Lake Berryessa in Napa County. A man approached wearing an executioner's hood with clip-on sunglasses over the eye holes. A white circle and cross marked his chest. He carried a gun and approached the couple claiming to be an escaped convict who needed their car. Instead, he tied them up with clothesline and produced a knife. He stabbed them repeatedly in a frenzied attack. Cecilia died 2 days later. Brian survived and provided the first detailed description of the killer. 2 weeks later, the killer struck again with a different approach. On October 11, 1969, in San Francisco's Presidio Heights neighborhood, a passenger entered the taxi of Paul Stein, a 29-year-old cab driver. After a short ride, the passenger shot Stein once in the head with a 9mm pistol. He then took Stein's wallet, car keys, and tore off a piece of the driver's bloodstained shirt. Witnesses saw a stocky man in the area and called police. Officers arrived within minutes, but the killer had vanished into the night, taking his grisly souvenir with him. 3 days after Stein's murder, the San Francisco Chronicle received another letter. The envelope contained a swatch of Paul Stein's blood-soaked shirt, proving beyond doubt that the letter writer was the killer. The letter mocked the police, providing details about the murder scene that hadn't been released to the public. He criticized law enforcement for their failure to catch him, even though officers had been in the vicinity within minutes. The Zodiac was growing bolder, more confident, more theatrical. His communications were becoming as much a part of his signature as the murders themselves. He wanted fame. In letters that followed, the killer finally gave himself a name. He signed his correspondence with the title that would become infamous, the Zodiac. The name fit his cryptic style, his obsession with symbols, his cipher puzzles. He continued to send letters throughout late 1969 and into 1970, each one containing threats, boasts, and additional ciphers. Some letters claimed he had killed more victims than police had attributed to him. He provided a running body count that climbed higher with each message. Investigators couldn't verify these additional claims, but the letters kept coming, each one more disturbing than the last. On November 8, 1969, the Zodiac mailed a cipher far more complex than his first. This 340-character puzzle became known as the Z340. Unlike the first cipher, no one could crack it. Cryptographers, both amateur and professional, worked on it for years without success. The Zodiac seemed to be escalating his intellectual challenge to the public. He wanted to prove he was smarter than everyone pursuing him. The Unsolved cipher became an obsession for codebreakers worldwide. It would remain a mystery for over 5 decades, taunting investigators and amateur sleuths alike with its impenetrable secrets. By early 1970, the Zodiac case had become a national phenomenon. Newspapers across America followed every development. Television news featured regular updates. The case represented something new in the American consciousness, a serial killer who communicated directly with the press, who seemed to enjoy the celebrity his crimes brought him. Police received thousands of tips, but none led to an arrest. The investigation consumed enormous resources. Multiple jurisdictions worked together, sharing information and theories. Task forces formed and reformed. Despite all the attention, all the manpower, the killer remained frustratingly elusive, always one step ahead. Beyond the 5 confirmed victims, investigators identified several other attacks that might have been the work of the Zodiac. On March 22, 1970, Kathleen Johns was driving with her infant daughter when a car pulled alongside, the driver indicating something was wrong with her vehicle. The helpful stranger stopped, but after examining her car, he loosened the wheel further. He offered a ride, then drove erratically for hours, making threats. Johns escaped at a gas station. Days later, she saw the Zodiac wanted poster and believed her abductor was the same man. The incident was never definitively linked to the Zodiac. Throughout 1970 and into 1974, the Zodiac sent sporadic letters, but the tone began to change. The correspondence became less frequent, less focused on specific murders. Some letters discussed bombs he claimed to have built. Others contained complaints about movies or society. The final confirmed Zodiac letter arrived in 1974. Then, silence. The murders attributed to him appeared to have stopped years earlier. Had he died? Moved away? Been imprisoned for another crime? Or had he simply satisfied whatever dark compulsion drove him? Investigators had no answers. The case grew cold, but it never closed. Over the decades, numerous suspects emerged. Arthur Lee Allen became the most famous person of interest. A Vallejo resident with a troubling background, Allen owned the same type of weapon used in the shootings. Witnesses placed him near crime scenes. His watch bore the same crosshair symbol the Zodiac used. Police searched his home twice, finding disturbing materials but nothing conclusive. Allen died in 1992, maintaining his innocence. DNA testing later seemed to exclude him, though some investigators remained convinced of his guilt. Dozens of other suspects were investigated over the years, each investigation leading nowhere definitive. Advances in forensic science brought renewed hope. DNA analysis, fingerprint technology, and digital enhancement of old evidence offered new possibilities. In December 2020, a team of codebreakers finally solved the Z340 cipher using modern computing power and innovative techniques. The message revealed more ramblings about life, death, and the afterlife, but contained no clues to the killer's identity. Genetic genealogy, the technique that solved the Golden State Killer case, was attempted using DNA from envelope seals. Results were inconclusive. The evidence, decades old, had degraded. Technology alone couldn't overcome the passage of time and the limitations of evidence collected with 1960s methods. The Zodiac case remains open, classified as unsolved by multiple California law enforcement agencies. The FBI maintains files on the case, though active investigation has largely ceased. Amateur detectives continue to propose theories, identify suspects, and debate evidence online. Documentary films, books, and television shows revisit the case regularly, each offering new angles or reviving old theories. The killer's identity has become one of America's most enduring mysteries, alongside questions like who killed JFK or what happened to D.B. Cooper. For the families of the confirmed victims, the lack of closure remains painful decades later. Behind the sensational headlines and cryptic ciphers were real people whose lives were stolen. David Faraday, 17, was a promising student. Betty Lou Jensen, 16, loved to dance. Darlene Farron, 22, was a mother. Cecilia Shepard, 22, studied at Pacific Union College. Paul Stein, 29, was driving a cab to support his graduate studies. These 5 confirmed victims had families, friends, and futures that were violently erased. Michael Mago and Brian Hartnell survived but carry physical and psychological scars. The Zodiac wanted attention and infamy. In remembering this case, we should center the victims, not celebrate the monster who murdered them. The Zodiac case transformed how America understood serial crime. It showed that killers could operate across jurisdictions, evading capture by exploiting gaps in communication between police departments. It demonstrated how media attention could embolden a criminal, giving them the audience they craved. The case led to changes in how law enforcement shares information and coordinates investigations. It revealed the limitations of forensic science and the importance of witness testimony. Most importantly, it stands as a reminder that some questions may never be answered, some crimes never solved. The Zodiac Killer achieved what he wanted, immortality through infamy. But he will never be anything more than a coward who murdered innocent people.